Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the December 15th, 22 SIG KCP Edge community meeting. Today, we don't have a lot on the agenda to discuss. I think this is mostly just a vote on whether or not we should have any more meetings for the rest of the year. Um, just to go over really quickly, the contributor code of contact as contributor and maintainers in the CNCF community and in the interest of fostering an open and welcoming committee. We pledge to respect all people who contribute through reporting issues, posting feature requests, updating documentation, submitting pull requests or patches or other activities. So basically, please, everybody just be nice to each other on the call. That's the real resounding message I'd like to get across. Anyway, so with that, we did have a couple things in the agenda. First is to vote, if you don't mind, on whether or not we should have any more meetings for the remainder of the year. You can see in the agenda, there's an item listed and linked there. Secondly, we were going to look over an RFC. The document's been posted. It's inside of Google Docs. It's specifically on policy distribution and bringing policy and workload distribution together as one, or at least that's the aim of the document, to move in that direction. There's a lot of initial things that have been reviewed by the team outside of the community meeting that need to be cared for, so they're not quite ready yet to talk about it here in the public forum, but you're free to join and use the doc as you see appropriate to make the updates and changes. I encourage you all to take a look at it. And at that point, when we do review it in January, I guess we'll go over and assign the issues. So that's all I see in the agenda currently. Is there anything, Constantine, is there anything that you'd like to comment on for your item here?
No, I think so just to give a quick background, so what we try to do is usually we start with a design document. So here we're working on a request for comments, which is like the stage even before the design document. We're trying to basically, solve describe the problem that we're trying to do, agree that this is a problem that we want to solve, define clearly the space, what are the things that need to be, addressed, and then the next stage for this would be to create a design document. But we're still basically we're still in the process of working and editing this document.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thanks. Hold on. Yeah, so folks, anybody who, if you have an RFC or anything that you'd like to share with the community, you can do so by adding the kcp-dev at googlegroups.com at the end of your list of invitees.
Yeah, but I just want to mention that right now this is work in progress, so I would definitely I would it'll change even if you guys are reviewing it right now. You know it'll still change, and it will not be necessarily in this format by the time we meet next time.
Yeah, and please do request help from others in the group for review and ideas. All right. Okay. So does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to the agenda or discuss today? I know that there's been some activity that June's had. We'll go through the items that have not yet been assigned status or to anyone in particular in just a minute, but I want to make sure that we're okay with all the items, if we've exhausted all the items in the current agenda. Okay. All right. So looking at the Kanban board, so we have two items here, 61 and 62. I see June assigned to one. Do you want to talk a little bit about 61 and 62, what their purpose is? And
I think this is just about some plumbings we are going to use to further development. Right now, when I decouple the controller, it's just as a simple main file, main.go. Doesn't even accept flags, etc. We want to use the well-known library, which is Cobra, to implement the plumbing for a future development.
okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments for June about either of these? So June, should both of these be assigned to you?
Yes, I think 61 is already being fixed by the pending PR 60, I guess so. Yes, so it should be assigned to me.
And you're saying 62 is already completed?
61
One is already completed?
will be completed
Oh,
when
will be.
PR 60 is closed,
Okay, I see.
is merged, I mean.
So
Okay.
it's in progress.
Yep. Moving it over.
Yeah.
And 62 is in progress as well.
62 is not started yet.
Okay, so we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, and 55, 56, 53, and 57 are all associated with the RFC and the work that's being done there, so no need to adjust those at this point, I don't think. Is there, okay, so that's all I had in terms of moving issues around and assigning.
I just closed one. I think it's 59. I don't know if you look at the done column.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few words to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, 59. Since in the community, I asked Andy Goldstein for help with regard to the listing problems, listing the placement and locations. And if we scale down, we can see that the root reason, Andy, could you scale down? Yes. The root reason is being the version of the KCP server I'm using in my code. Initially, when I run the controller, I'm importing the previous release in my code. So for consistency, I also run the server with the same release. But in that release, the server actually doesn't respond to the request to the placement to the API expert. So when I switch to the main branch, it works as expected. So that's actually the reason the controller doesn't list placement and locations. I put my the output of my terminal here, so you can see clearly what's happening with this issue. Yeah, that's my only comment on this one.
Okay, any questions for June? All right. Okay, folks. So we can open the floor. I don't have anything else. Go ahead, Andy.
Thanks. Just a quick note, Yuji, there's an outstanding or pending invite to the KCP Dev GitHub org. Hopefully you got it. If not, let me know and I can try and resend it. But everybody else that Andy that you had me invite has accepted.
It's not contributors, is it, Andy? Which one is it?
Edge. There's an Edge contributors. Yeah, you can see there's one pending.
Yeah, UG, have you seen that? Yeah.
Yeah, I will check that. Sorry.
Okay, do you have the email or do you need it resent?
Let me check the.
Yeah, just reach out to me on Slack if you
Yeah.
can't find it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other business?
I have a question since we are here. I think one requirement that came out of, I think, was the policy work that UG was working on was about this idea of upsyncing policy report that is generated on the physical cluster, for example, for Kyverno, right? So you basically submit a policy on the KCP side. This is propagated to the physical cluster. The controller on that side will create a policy report. And the idea was to be able to somehow sync that back to KCP. So I saw that there is some work going on for think per system volume currently to do upsyncing. I was wondering if there is any plan in KCP to somehow generalize this ability to upsync resources.
Yes, at least we envision the upsyncing not only for the PVs, even if it was the a starting use case. We already have requirements for upsyncing for pods in a limited way, of course, or at least controlled way, and as well for endpoints, because you need, for example, for Knative, you need to check endpoints to know if a given application is effectively start up and running. And for pods as well, in order to be able to do pod logs or pod exec, you need at least to have some sort of pod proxies or limited version of pods upsynced to KCP. So the mechanism is designed. There is an ongoing work here, not finished, but it has been designed to be really generic, though limited in the application of it. Mainly, we don't want, obviously, to completely open the door to let any syncer sync anything in KCP. So for now, it's I think there is probably a hard-coded list of things that can be upsynced. But once again, it's completely managed in the upsyncer virtual workspace. There is the same way as for the syncing. There is a dedicated virtual workspace for upsyncing. And so here we could think about adding some way to configure that to allow other objects to be upsynced. But apart from that, upsyncing is really a generic mechanism. You just have to add a given label on the downstream object with a namespace locator, which is an annotation which defines where you want your object to end up on KCP side, in which KCP workspace, in which KCP namespace. And based on this, the upsyncing occurs. So there is nothing that, in theory, would prevent you to upsync some other type of objects.
Right, but who adds this label on the downstream? For example, if I have, suppose I'm integrating with some open source project like, I don't know, Kyverno, even Crossplane, there is a similar use case where there are connection secrets being created. So who's gonna put that label on that downstream object?
Yeah, so the labels on the, for the limited use cases we had until now, the label on the downstream object is mainly just the same label as what you have on the upstream objects when you want to sync, but instead of the sync value, it has the upsync value. So the request state label that, so if it's upsync, then the object will be taken downstream and upsynced upstream with this label as well, which allows, and it will be created with this label upstream, which allows us defining rules that are quite important. That if you have an object that is at least in upsync mode for at least one sync target, it should not be synced to any other sync target at the same time, because that means that this object is effectively owned by the physical cluster who created it, who upsynced it.
Mhm.
So for now, that's how it works. Obviously, this involves having some sort of controllers on the physical cluster that will set those labels on the objects.
Oh, okay. So that is the part I was missing, that you still need to have something on the downstream cluster to manage these labels.
Yes, obviously, because this is the really limited cases where the the origin of a KCP object is downstream. So you need to have some process that will express this intent. I want to bring a downstream object, upsync it upstream. So, in any case, you need to express this intent. And so you have to have some sort of agent downstream to flag this.
I see. Or in some case, you may be considering owner reference, for example, as way to.
Well, yes, but once again, the upsync itself mechanism we envision to be generic, so based on some label. But of course, if you have some more, use case specific relationships, owner refs or some other type of relationships between objects, like PVC and PV through the claim ref, for example, then you would have a dedicated controller downstream that will follow those rules and flag the corresponding object and label the corresponding objects accordingly, the objects that should be upsynced. Mm-hmm. So we really try to decorrelate, decouple the upsync mechanism itself, which is mainly individual process based on individual labels, from the intent to upsync, which would be, really use case dependent and implemented by some controller. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, I think I understand the separation of some responsibility. I was wondering also for the case of the PV that you have apparently more advanced, if you also have built this controller downstream to actually do this labeling stuff.
Yes, it's in. These are work in progress pull requests, but we're not, in a state. Maybe that we can share them. But I think 1 or 2 weeks after the beginning of the year, it should be much clearer here. But obviously, it's clear that in our cases, the upsynced objects are mainly really basic cube objects like PVs, PVCs, pods, or endpoints. It would be a very limited set of objects on which we would allow that. And for those objects, we can easily implement the controllers inside the syncer.
Oh, I see.
Which we will do in process.
I see. So the idea is for some maybe use case, you're going to have this as part of the syncer itself, and other use case, someone has to write an external controller.
I assume we could do, this way. Sure, this would make sense. And possibly just a configuration in your workspace or in a namespace or on KCP itself, on a KCP flavor, to say the upsync virtual workspace will accept also this type of object, in addition to the limited subset of objects we support today. But that could be configuration, I think.
And I assume this mechanism also, there will be some kind of reverse permission, reverse claim permission kind of thing, right? Because you have to say, well, you have to be able to create stuff on my KCP workspace.
Yes, that's why, I think as soon as we envision upsyncing as a not only a generic mechanism for internal needs, for internal, TMC needs, but a mechanism that would be opened to external third-party components, then obviously we will have to think about those permission things that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it's it would probably be, some additions into the Syncer airbag rules. For now, we already have some rules that only allow the Syncer service account to access the virtual workspace, the Syncer virtual workspace. So for now, the same permissions are applied for both the virtual workspace and the Syncer. I mean, the Syncer and the UpSyncer virtual workspaces. But we could also distinguish both and have dedicated, more fine-grained permissions for what we allow from the Syncer side. I mean, that's completely open here, and I think would be managed by the same type of logic that we already have.
Okay, thank you.
And did it answer?
Yes. Yep, that's helpful.
Okay. Any other topics for discussion today? Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. I think I'll take a look at the results of the poll in just a few minutes and plan and schedule accordingly. Thank you very much for all your contributions this year. And if I don't see you before the new year, everybody enjoy the rest of your month of December. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.